Hello and welcome, my friend, to the Incredible Fathers Podcast, episode number 7, where we help men conquer mental health challenges, eliminate fear, and build happy marriages and healthy families. I'm Philip Mason, your host, and I'm delighted to spend time with you today. Today, we have the opportunity to hear from my brother, Greg Mason, who is right in the middle of growing a family of his own and recently had their 4th child just join their family. So let's get into it and hear from Greg. Greg, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I'm excited to have you on the Incredible Fathers Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I got 4 little kids right now, and I consider myself a father in training. My oldest is only 9, so still learning a lot about being a father. And as they get older and older, you learn more and more and experience more of what it takes and what's required.
Yeah, it's a learning process for sure, isn't it? How have you kind of seen over the last 9 years with your children? How have you seen that's changed you as a man? Do you feel like you're a different person than you were 9 years ago?
Absolutely. I remember with the first child that we had, our oldest, he was a hard baby. So we were panicked. We didn't know what we were doing. And now that we have our 4th one, who's just a baby right now, just 5 months old. I think what's changed the most in 9 years is that I'm just enjoying it a whole lot more. I think when the more kids you have, I think the more you enjoy those younger years when they're a baby and you're not getting a lot of sleep. When you actually had more kids, you actually enjoy it more, which seems like wouldn't be the case. But I think over these 9 years, I've just been able to relax more and enjoy it and have fun with them in each phase that they're in versus worrying about all the different challenges that they're facing, just knowing that they'll grow up, you're doing your part, and they'll have a good time.
Awesome. Yeah, there's definitely some synergies there when you have multiple children and you're able to do multiple things at the same time. Hit 2 birds with 1 stone kind of thing. So it's kind of funny. I love that growth and development into it where it becomes more enjoyable over time. So let's, if we can, just talk a little bit more about that first child. What was kind of your experience there? What kind of things made it difficult?
Yeah. Our first son, he was like a colicky baby. When he was born, he came out and the nurses were like, "We've never heard a baby scream that loud." And he was so loud. He would scream and scream, and we never figured it out. What was wrong? He screamed for the first 10 months, and we were sleep deprived. And this is our first experience. We're like, "Is this what a baby's like?" I remember we were really nervous to have a second one because we were like, that was so miserable. He eventually grew out of it and started sleeping better and screaming less. And then when we had our second, we were like, "Oh, this is what this is like. A normal baby is like." But it's funny how, as a parent, you always look back and you're like, "Oh, we should have done this differently." With our first son, maybe we should have gone to and got some help from certain professionals and say "Hey, this isn't normal." And I guess your perspective of what is normal changes as a parent. And I think that's a good thing. They were like, "Hey, that wasn't normal, and these are the things we would do next time," and just learning from that. So.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the idea behind Incredible Fathers is we can have a compository of knowledge where we have enough experiences that new fathers, they can learn a few things and be able to say, okay, this is not normal, this is normal, this is how I handle it. But that sleep deprivation is a really big problem, I think, for a lot of fathers, and that they're just not in their normal mind when they have those issues. So when you have a child that has extra needs or is struggling with health issues, it can be really hard as a father to be kind of level-headed with things. So what kind of things did you do to cope with a colicky baby?
That's a really good point. I'm a morning person. I like to get up early and exercise and then, go to work. And so I'm best in the morning, but the time when I most frequently am with my children is in the afternoon, evening hours when I'm at my most tired, right? If I can get my day started off well, with a good workout, that helps tremendously to kind of get a good flow for the day. And also just when I'm coming home from work, just sometimes I'll even say a prayer as I'm heading home and be like, "Hey, help me. I had this really stressful day at work. Help me that as I go home," and I already know, right? I already know things at home aren't going well because my wife has updated me throughout the day. I know the kids have been rough. She's kind of on her end of her rope. And so on days like that, it's definitely a prayer that I can get the help I need, from spiritual source to help the kids, or do whatever it is that the kids need to distract from the cause of the contention in the home. So I think those are two things. I think a third thing also is just ending the day with reading a good book. Um, it's like when I'm we finally got the kids in bed to have a book that I'm reading. Sometimes it's just I can only get through 1 or 2 pages before my head's starting to bob down, but that helps me clear my day, clear my mind, and get try to reset and have another good night's rest. I I've been doing that for a long time, and that really helps break it up so it's just one day at a time, and you only have to take it one day at a time versus the days stringing together. I think when we had our first son, the days just were stringing together. It's just one big long misery. Now it's, hey, we had a rough afternoon, but we reset, and tomorrow morning we're ready to go, right? And so doing some of those, having a routine, doing things like exercising, connecting with God in your the spirituality piece, and then also just resetting with a good night's rest. That's critical to being able to handle the day-to-day stress.
Yeah, that's really profound because I've noticed the same thing in my life, with the seven children. Like you said, it can all string together. It's almost like Groundhog's Day. It all feels like the same thing. It keeps going and you just feel the fatigue starts to set in and it can really hamper your ability to feel like you can make it in the long terms. To go a little bit further on the part with God, do you feel like God has helped you to become a better father? Do you feel like he's helping you and guiding you in your journey?
Absolutely. I think when I've added the spiritual piece in, like included my children in that, include the children in the praying and the reading of scriptures. It seems to enhance the rate at which you strengthen your relationship with your children. And like when I've doing bedtime and tucking my kids into bed, being able to say a prayer with my children or to read scriptures with them. Uh, I don't. It's hard to put a finger on what it is, but it seems to put you and them on the same level of we're children of God. We're here for the same purpose, and we're both trying to accomplish the same thing. Right? We're both trying to get back to live with Heavenly Father again. And so it doesn't make it so that I'm this older, wiser father that's trying to pull him along. We're on the same page. We're both trying to get there. I've definitely experienced that with my oldest, who was our hardest for years. But then for like the last 2 to 3 years, we've read from the scriptures every single day together. And it's really been a huge strengthening point for our relationship as we've found insights together and things that he's thought is interesting, I've thought is interesting, and just generated, lots of questions and discussions that have been beneficial for not just for him, but for me as well. There's times where we're reading and find an insight, reading scriptures to my child. It's not my own personal scripture study, but it's when we're doing it together, I get these insights into different doctrine and different ways to approach things in life. And I'm like, hey, that was really good. Even though I'm tired and it's late and I want him to go to sleep, I'm also learning and growing.
Oh, that's fantastic. So there's kind of this power that comes into your life. It sounds like that's kind of binding you together as you're making that connection with God, kind of a triangle of sorts.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
yeah, that's awesome. Um, what motivated you to want to have a larger family? So many people today aren't having big families. What was kind of your driving factor to have a larger family, especially when you start off with the first child not
Yeah.
being a more difficult child, right? And even nurses telling you, "We've never had a child scream like this before. I don't know what's going on with them." Like,
Yeah.
what's your motivation? Does it come from God, or where would you say your motivation comes from?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think, yeah, twofold. One, definitely my motivation comes from God, that God, has commanded my wife and I to bring children into this world, that's an important part of his plan. And two, just my love for my wife. Like we love each other, and from our love, there's that natural desire to have offspring together and to raise them together and to have a family together. Definitely is one of the reasons why we want to have children. It takes us as husband and wife into a deeper relationship with each child. It's been an incredible experience. With each child that's born, your love and admiration for your wife grows, and your ability to understand each other and sense the needs of the other person in the relationship grows with each child that comes into your relationship. We both come from fairly large families, but we never like put our finger on a number, like, hey, we want to have this many kids. From the start, we've always said, like, we'll just take it one at a time and see how it goes, and like there was never this like, oh, we have to have this certain number. Um, but we've kind of just kept doing what we felt was right. And we're up to four now, and it's been a good journey.
There's a lot of wisdom in just taking things a step at a time, right? And just kind of feeling things out and, seeing where does God want to take us. And I couldn't agree more that love is a powerful motivator, and that love is probably what makes us human, and probably what most connects us with God. Right? It's God's chief characteristics, that love. What kind of other things do you do to cultivate love, to have a loving environment in your home?
Yeah. In our home, Rachel and I, we've never really broken it out as to who's responsible for what. We just make sure that when I see that she's taking care of one task, I'm looking for the next task that needs to be accomplished to help our family. So it's more of just trying to help, be aware of what the needs are. And again, I don't think it's necessarily something we've like talked about and planned out how we want to do it. It's just wanting the other person to not have to shoulder the burden alone. That's one of the key components of marriage, is that we're going to shoulder the burdens, and everything that happens in our lives. We're shouldering that together, and that's uh, in a day-to-day basis and also year to year. If there's a small daily task that she can't do right now, I'm going to do it. And if we're looking at bigger scale, if there's challenges with health or challenges with a specific child, that's not a small day-to-day challenge, but something that we're facing, we shoulder that burden together. And it's the next person up kind of mentality of, okay, she's got this, I'm going to handle this, and just keep tackling the different tasks and challenges that come our way.
Yeah, so it sounds like if you have to push, you're gonna push together, and if you have to pull, you pull together, and you have that mentality of working really close together to make things happen. But it also sounds like you guys you don't have a lot of high degree of structure or planning things out. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's the case. We discuss it frequently with our children, right? As like, hey, we don't want to have contention in our home. We want everyone to contribute, and then we try and model that for the children. But it's not something that we plan out, make a list like, hey, you're going to do this task and I'm going to do this task, right? That piece of it isn't discussed or really planned out. It's more of like, we're trying to teach our children. We want everyone to step in and be able to help. Um, and yeah, so definitely not something we've planned out, but just more the basic principle versus the actual task list that's, written out every morning.
Okay. So you approach it not so much like a Benjamin Franklin where he's got his whole month planned out and what virtues he's gonna develop and what weeks he's gonna develop it, and kids, these are the virtues you're gonna work on this week.
Right.
Where it's more of a natural flow in your home, and you just kind of go along with the music as it develops in your family. Would that be a correct way of
Yeah,
thinking about it?
absolutely.
Okay.
I've been reading The Dichotomy of Leadership. It's a Jocko Willink and Leif Babin book. I like those authors. I don't know if you've read them before, but they talk
Yeah.
about as Navy SEALs, they have what they call decentralized command, where each member of the unit, because as they're out there in combat, you never know what situation will come back where the unit will need to split, or they'll have different people within the group who aren't the leaders, who will need to take leadership roles in any given moment. And so it's the same way in a family where you have mom and dad who are the leaders, but you never know when, the kids are out in the backyard and something happens and somebody needs to be ready to respond to that. And so it's having that flow of saying, if something happens, we expect you to act and to help out your sibling or to help out your parent. And so we try to model that in our home, that principle of just saying next person up to help. It's not it's not about issuing orders and making lists for us.
Wow. So that's a really neat principle. Next person up. I like that. Next person up principle. Uh, Getting in there and kind of training your children to take responsibility for the situation and be resilient, and if something doesn't go right, step up and do something to make it happen. Do you feel like that gives you an advantage as a family doing things like that? Do you feel like that gives you advantage maybe say over what you see happening in other families?
Yeah, well, I think there's positives to both, right? Of having things listed out. I think it certainly presents us with flexibility because you never know what kind of tasks need to be done. Some days you have your routines and it's the same task you're doing day in and day out, but other days it's not. And so it's good to have it where it's like, it doesn't matter what she's been doing. I'm gonna do this because that's what is needed right now for the kids, for us, the family. So yeah, I think there's benefits to that.
Yeah. What kind of things have helped you to strengthen your marriage over time? And if you're willing to share, have there been times where your marriage has struggled and you've found that something really helped kind of build your marriage back up into a healthy marriage?
I think just doing the small daily things, right? Like every night we kneel down together and we say a prayer. And I think if that doesn't happen, then there's a disconnect there. And so it's always good when we do that every single night where it gives us a chance to regroup and talk and kind of see what the needs of the other person are and what our own needs are and what the children need. I think doing that has helped us a lot. Um, we've been blessed. I think we have never had any situations where we felt like our marriage was not going well or on track. I think we've um, both tried to um, be united in our worship of God and as well as our being supportive of one another and kind of the things that we're interested in doing throughout our marriage. Early on, career wise, my career didn't jump off to a good start, but Rachel was always super supportive, and it was never something that she was like concerned about or like, hey, we need to like increase our income. She was always very supportive of that, and I appreciate that, and I know that there's things that she's interested in that like she's supported me. I want to support her in those things. And I think the kind of the big thing that's helped us get through, we've been married for 12 years now is, there's a lot of talk about forgiveness and forgiveness is very, very important. But I think on the flip side of that is seeking forgiveness. So she forgives me and I always promptly seek forgiveness. There's so many times where I recognize like, hey, I didn't handle that situation very well. And instead of letting it compound over that day or that week or that month, as soon as I recognize that I didn't handle a situation very well, and usually it's immediately after that situation has occurred, right? Like something happens within seconds of it being over, I didn't handle that. I didn't handle that well. And so just in those minutes, being able to immediately go to my spouse and apologize and seek forgiveness, I think has been huge in helping us not have any, you know, discontent and discord between us that carries over from day to day. And I think that's the same with the children. I mean, there's times where in trying to teach my children or discipline my children, haven't handled the situation well. And, immediately after the situation, you can sense like, hey, they're not happy. I like didn't execute that well. And so then I go back to my child and apologize and say, hey, like dad's sorry. He didn't mean it that way, or they took it too far, things like that. And, I've done that, several times with my children and seeing them, um, one appreciate it and it helps us repair that relationship quickly, but it also I've seen them do that as well. I know there's times when we've disciplined them and they know that they disobeyed a family rule, and so that's why they're set, and they've come quickly and after they've calmed down and apologized and said like sorry dad and given me a hug, and I was like, "Oh, thank you," like that meant a lot to me that you would come and apologize and stuff. So I think that seeking forgiveness part is crucial, not just to a marriage, but to every member of a family and the relationships in that family.
Wow, that's awesome. So as I'm talking with you, I'm kind of getting this sense that you have a very open and collaborative marriage, and you're very open and agree with your children as well too. So like if we think about this from a leadership standpoint and going back to, the Jocko Willink concept there, how do you view yourself as a leader in the family, especially in conjunction with your wife? Because I get the sense that you're a very humble man and you're not domineering over your children or
Yeah.
over your wife. So what's your approach? What's your philosophy on leadership in the family, especially with your wife and then also from with your children too?
As the father in the home, I'm not trying to dictate what the activities we're doing. So my children are definitely interested in activities that I'm not interested in. My son, he's not a sports guy. He doesn't really want to go outside and throw the football around. I've invited him to do those things and he's like, no, I don't want to. But he wants to do crocheting or building bridges with popsicle sticks and things like that. He's got that engineering type mind. He loves to work on stuff like that. So I think as a father, you have to be flexible in the activities that your family does and not dictating that. I try to lead out in getting the family together to have discussions, to have family prayer, those type of activities. But once we're all together, I'm not the one that's saying, hey, this is how it's going to be. This is what we're going to be doing now for the next set amount of time. It's usually very informal, where we try to engage everyone in the discussion or in the activity, whatever it may be, and try to keep it open. You never know which direction things are going to go, as children are sometimes interested in things you didn't think they would be, and sometimes not interested in things you would think they would. So I have to definitely be open-minded there.
So let's talk about this a little bit more. So if you you're inviting your family together, you're leading out and say, let's get together. We want to plan out a family activity or some recreation. You're actually counseling together. It sounds like you're actually having a discussion on what we're going to do, right? So you're just not top down dictating. We shall do this, but you're asking the family members for their input, right? Do you have kind of an order of operations you go about doing that, or is it just let's talk about it? Like how do you approach a family council
Yeah.
like that?
Um, Definitely. Once we've gotten them together, I try to maybe share an example or two, especially like this, it's January. So earlier in the year, we got the kids together and said, hey, what are some activities you guys enjoyed from last year? And then we had a good little discussion about what activities did we do together last year that they really liked. And then it said, okay, what do you guys want to do for this next year? And some of the ideas that were coming out were same exact things we did the year before, but they just loved it so much they wanted to do it. And then, after that discussion about activities that we wanted to do, we said, okay, well, what about goals? What are some goals you want to set? And some of them had very specific things they wanted to set goals for, and others were like, I don't really know. As a parent, sometimes that the knee jerk reaction is to then give them an idea for a goal or give them a goal. And we said, that's okay that you don't have something in mind right now. Think about it. Like we didn't try to fill in the hole. We didn't try to place a goal in there for them to work on. We can discuss this in a week, or we can discuss this tomorrow. Why don't you think about what goal you may want to set, and then we can go from there. And I've seen that definitely in just different leadership roles I've had, where I've tried to set the goals with my team and said, this is the goal, and push that to my team. That never works out as well as when you're having a discussion and then you say, okay, this is our challenges. This is what we need to accomplish this year. What do you guys think would be an appropriate goal for our team? And when we've done that, we've had a lot more success and buy-in. So for my children and their goals, I don't want to step in at all at any point and say what their goals should be. I want them to come up that on their own and then help them set a realistic goal and then support them in any way that I can.
Mm. That's very profound. Do you find that your children have more creativity and ingenuity because of that approach that you take?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. They've expressed interest and started working on activities that I like never thought they would or that they would even care about. My son has been crocheting like a lot over the last several years. It's actually been somewhat comical is just seeing my 9-year-old there with two knitting needles, just like crocheting away. But it's awesome. He pretty much taught himself how to do it. My wife helped him find a few YouTube videos that kind of explained it, and he watched them several times, and he practiced for a long time on a certain, you know, knot pattern, and then he'll actually just, as soon as he's done, he'll pull the string out, he'll pull it all apart, and then try again, and
No way.
it's not so focused on what am I making as, the process. And I think that's really impressive that he's just like, okay, cool, I did it. And then just pull it all apart. I remember when I was a little kid, if I made something, I wanted to hold on to it. And, that was mine. I made it. And here he's just immediately pulling it apart. So I think that's really cool that he's learning some of these skills and activities that I never did. And, that I don't know how to do to this day. And I think, yeah, having that flexibility and letting him run with that, I think has been a positive, and definitely given him some things to do that he's enjoyed.
Yeah, I think a lot of our children have skills and talents, abilities that as parents we're sometimes surprised that they've got, and so I think cultivating those and developing those is huge for a father. Have you had any other examples of that in your family where you've helped cultivate your children's gifts and talents, and how'd you go about that?
Yeah. I have one daughter. It seems like we hardly even put much effort into teaching her how to read, but she just really grasped it really well. And now that's something that she really loves doing. She loves to read and loves that she's progressing so well in reading. And we're not really trying to push that, but we do support her anytime that she brings us a book and says, "Hey, I want to read this." We sit down and read it with her and help her through it. But our other daughter, she's kind of more of the social butterfly in the family. She usually just chat people up. When I'm with her, I don't try to prevent her from socializing with people. Like even strangers in public or at church, obviously I'm there to make sure she's safe. But if she engages someone in a conversation, I just let it. So I just like see, okay, let's see where this goes. Um, so she's so kind and will say hello and say nice things to people all the time. It's really fun to watch.
That's awesome, especially when you consider, like, in America, at one point in America, there used to be a time where children were told to be quiet and to be there but not seen or heard, right? So as
Yeah.
a father, to encourage their children to go out and be social and participate, I think that's huge. I just wanted to get your take, Greg, on, we grew up in the same household. We're from a family of 7, and, what kinda lessons did you gain from our parents, from our mom and dad that, have been really helpful to you that you've tried to implement as a father today?
Yeah. When I think back on watching my parents parent, I didn't realize how hard it was for them. And maybe it's because I was one of the younger kids. They made it look so easy. And then when I had my own kids, I was like, oh, wow, this is way harder than mom and dad made it look. They were pretty amazing at that. And maybe it was just because I was one of the younger ones. But I know in my conversations with my younger siblings and my older siblings that sometimes we talk about our parents, and sometimes they'll be like, "Wow, I didn't have that experience," and it's because you can tell in our conversations that you and older siblings had different experience and than what I had, and it's partly because our parents changed as they were parenting, had their first 3 children as they got older, and then as they had little children come along later, their parenting style changed. And I think that's the biggest thing I've learned about parenting from them is to not be worried about changing how you parent. Like I'm probably going to parent each child differently and grow in my parenting, and that's okay. That's a positive thing. But especially my father, I think he was evaluating how he was doing as a parent and saw that he wanted to change and do things differently. And I think that's a real positive. Change is a good thing.
Yeah, I think it comes back to what you were saying earlier about, having a culture of forgiveness in your home and being able to repent and change. Like if something's not going right, to ask for forgiveness. And then once you develop that, it starts going both ways, right? And you start seeing a lot of growth and development in your family that way. So closing question here. If For those that are listening to this podcast, what kind of advice would you have to new fathers or fathers that are in a current circumstances that you find yourself in?
As a parent, especially with my 2 older, it seems to be my 2 oldest. But when I watch my 2 oldest and I observe their weaknesses, it's almost like looking in a mirror. Like God sent them to me to like highlight what my own weaknesses were, As a parent, when your children seem to, and I don't know if it's just like they just inherited that from you, or they saw you doing it that way, so they're starting to manifest some of your own weaknesses. But that's been something that, as a new father, was like really hard for me. As I watched my kids, I was like, he's doing exactly what I did or what I do. His, their personality and the weaknesses and the things they're struggling with, I'm like, I struggle with those things. So I think maybe one of the reasons why it's so important to be a parent is that you can't hide from your weaknesses. Before I had kids, I had weaknesses that I didn't know about, right? Or that you could hide from them. But once you become a parent and you see your kids doing those things, and you're like, wow,
It's just
I
all out there.
have to adjust. I have to start to try and tackle some of these. If I want to successfully parent this child who's exhibiting these weaknesses, I've definitely got to work on them myself. As parents, like it all of a sudden becomes crystal clear what your own weaknesses are. And I think that's advice would be like, don't be scared of that. Don't be afraid of that. Children are very resilient and forgiving. And if they see you working on your weaknesses, they're going to want to work on theirs. That's definitely something I'm doing. I want to work on my weaknesses. My kids are helping point that out for me. And 20 years from now, when my last kids are moving out, those weaknesses won't have the same effect on my life as they did 10 years ago when I first started having kids.
Those are
the weaknesses.
That's right. Attack the weaknesses. Very, very profound insights. I appreciate you sharing that.
Parenting is going to be the hardest thing. I've joked several times with my wife and said, we didn't get enough warning. Like nobody, let us know how hard this really was. In all reality, while it is the most challenging thing you'll do, it is definitely brings the most joy into your life, and having those relationships and seeing your children grow and become really good people that are trying to do their best. It brings joy that you can't have anywhere else.
Awesome. Well said. Thank you, Greg, for being with us today. We appreciate you being part of our Curveballs Fathers podcast. So thank you for joining me on that discussion with my brother, Greg. I think we pulled out some great insights from that conversation. So there's 5 main things that stuck with me as I listened to Greg talk. So the first one is teach your children that you aren't perfect, but are constantly trying to become better and to do things better, including your own parenting. Number 2, teach your children to forgive others and to ask for forgiveness when needed. And number 3, apologize to your children when you handle them wrong, and they will ask for your forgiveness eventually over time as they learn, when they handle things wrong too. So it can go both ways. And number 4, counsel as a family to figure out what needs to be done, get your children's input as to family decisions, and involve them in that decision-making process. Number 5, don't be too rigid in planning. It's good to get together as a family, discuss what needs to be done, and then just do what's right in the moment. And that allows your children to be leaders and to be flexible and to participate in directing the family forward. Can produce a good learning process. So those are my 5 things that I learned from Greg in our discussion today. My friend, thank you for joining us on the Incredible Fathers podcast, episode number 7. It's been a pleasure to have you on board today, and we'll catch you in the next episode. God bless.